Welcome to the Los Angeles Leaders Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of the visionaries shaping the future of our region. Hosted by Christopher Luna. This podcast brings you conversations with the movers and shakers, driving innovation, leadership, and community impact across Los Angeles. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a community leader, or simply someone passionate about making a difference, this podcast is your gateway to the insights and inspiration you need to lead and succeed. Get ready to be inspired by the leaders making waves in Los Angeles and beyond.
On this episode, we welcome Joone Kim-Lopez. Joone Kim-Lopez is recognized internationally for her leadership in innovation, organizational excellence, and workforce culture. As the CEO of Moulton Niguel Water District, a public utility serving South Orange County, she has worked with her team to be recognized as a top workplace in Orange County and the USA, being the first utility to earn such a distinction, according to USA Today. With over 30 years of experience in public service, Joone has served diverse communities across California, bringing people together to navigate conflict and drive meaningful impact. For the last 4 years, she served as the California Seismic Safety Commissioner, as the founder of the California Data Collaborative, a nonprofit bringing big data solutions to water and representing 21 million Californians. She works tirelessly to support and inspire the next generation of leaders to take on the state's growing challenges. Joone serves on the boards of numerous organizations to foster connections and partnerships, including the California Seismic Safety Commission, the Association of California Water Agencies, the Southern California Water Coalition, the Water Research Foundation, California Water Ruse, and UC Irvine's Water Leadership Board. She also acts as the National Advisor for the Lifeline Infrastructure Initiative and serves on the boards for the California Water Data Consortium, the NAACP of California and Hawaii, the Korean American Coalition, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Her greatest passion is uniting people around a shared goal of building resilient communities that prioritize the safety and well-being of all. Prior to her career in the utility sector, Joone served as a police officer for the city of Pasadena, where she received numerous commendations, including the Silver Medal of Courage for bravery under fire and special recognition from the DEA for her work in undercover narcotics operations. As an immigrant from South Korea, Joone deeply understands the value of the American dream, an experience that has shaped her commitment to building meaningful relationships and making service to others a central priority in her life. Please welcome Joone Kim-Lopez.
That's an incredible introduction. There's a reason why I have that played out before us, because just to tap into everything that you do and everyone you're involved with, every organization that you're involved in, it's incredible. So just to kind of bring it all together, and before I ask you a million questions, because I don't think I'm gonna have enough time for all of this, help my audience understand the scope of the agency that you're currently at, before I get into how you got there. But let them understand this water district, because I visited once before, and it's a massive organization and industry, and you do a lot for it. So just kind of help us understand the impact and what it is that you do.
Well, after an intro like that, Chris, I feel like I'm just going to defeat myself in anything that I say going forward. But just to give you and the audience a little idea about our agency, Moulton Niguel Water District, we are a retail public water agency serving 6 cities in South Orange County. And in the state of California, there's about 7,000 different systems, all sizes and shape, that serve our great diverse communities. And regardless of the size of the agency, it really is about what you strive to do. And at Moulton Niguel, we're not the largest agency, but we always punch above our weight, and our footprint is global. So we serve our 6 cities with water, wastewater, recycled water service, but we also are a model in the state when it comes to financial planning, water resource management, rate structure, water efficiency, water policy. We're very proud of that, because none of this happens without our partners, the diverse stakeholders that we have. And then nationally, our reputation for workforce, we've been the top workplace in Orange County awesome. 8 years in a row, and also top workplace USA 5 years in a row since it started by USA Today. And we're very proud of that, of all the great things that we accomplished, because it's something that belongs to all of us at the organization, and not just within the organization, but people outside of the organizations, our partners, our customers, our communities. I said it's because of us. It belongs to all of us. And then globally, our work with data and innovation, we have made partnerships worldwide. And one of my favorite stories to tell, maybe at some point in this interview, is how we helped continent of Africa develop a data model of collaborators and to do good for diverse communities. And so, me being a short person, a small person, I always say never let the size limit what you can strive, because it's really all about what you want to achieve. And we're very proud of that at Moulton Niguel.
I mean, if I were to look at you and meet you randomly somewhere, I would never think of you as a general manager of a water district at that size. And you still haven't given us like numbers or figures. I don't think it's easy to understand. I'm lucky because I've been there. I see the infrastructure. How many staff? Like, what's your size? What's your scope look like?
So we have over 200 staff. 6 cities. We serve about 172,000 customers, our community members. And we have 7 board members who are elected by the public. And again, we value our strength based on our partnerships and our connections. And when you figure that, we have the most amazing partners all over the place. And so I was going to ask you, so if you saw me and you didn't think that I was a CEO of a water agency, what would you think I was?
I would say like banking or finance or something.
I'll take that. Yeah, those are smart people.
Finance is good. Yeah, definitely not, I guess it's kind of bad to assume, right? You're going to assume a male figure in engineering, but you have that background, right? And I'm going to get to that. So, and actually, let me lead up to like your childhood. Like, how did you get into the water side of things? But before we even get there, like, tell me a little bit about your childhood and your background.
My childhood, I think most everybody has the same story, which is a story that you don't think that people would assume. So I was born in South Korea. I immigrated to the United States when I was 8 years old with my parents. Didn't know a word of English. We were sponsored by my aunt and my grandmother, who were already in the United States. And coming to the United States, not knowing a word of English, and this was before ESL and K-pop, and it's like before all that fusion, before being Korean was a cool thing. It wasn't then. And coming here, not having any money, living in poverty, coming to a system and culture that I just didn't know about except on little black and white TV in Korea. And just to give an example, in Korea, we didn't have cheese back then. So my first taste of pizza at a public school, when I went, I was like, what is this? I thought it was an egg.
Wow.
And I tasted it. Cheese, which I love, by the way, but it's my first bite into cheese. And I thought it was so gross. I threw it away. I'm like, what is this? So it's that culture shock. And growing up, it was very difficult. And when I was young, I was very, we used correct terms like overweight, pudgy, but back then I was really overweight. I mean, they called me fat, so ugly. I was very unathletic, talk about acne. So I didn't have friends. And before bullying was a thing, having gone through all that, so you come into this culture where you don't know anything and you don't know anybody, and you have parents, because I was an only child, my parents just had a very hard time adjusting. And in Korea, there's no such thing as like domestic violence or divorce, alimony. So there was a lot of abuse. And, my parents had that. And I don't excuse what happened, but I do understand, because of the way that they grew up in the culture, the violence that I grew up in my household as an only child. And then you go to school and it was a foreign land, and I never felt that I belonged anywhere. And that continued throughout my high school. And, finally, like in my junior, I just thought I need to change at least my life and get a little healthier, just get better for me, and start to figure out what I wanted to do with life. And it was a struggle because, I was telling a friend the other day that growing up, I never remember my parents asking me a question. There was no like family meeting or
how do you feel?
How do you feel? How was your day? You were just like spoken to and you listened to. And again, my parents provided shelter. They gave me the things that I needed, but it was a very different time then. And I think with every generation we get better. But those adversities and those lessons learned has really made me who I am today in understanding how I treat the next generation, whether it's my children or somebody else's children, and how I look at sort of not just the work space and the work environment, but how I would want people to feel, really to belong, to be included, and just to be kind.
Your parents, were they pretty strict, or how, like, what were some of the lessons that they taught you growing up? Like, how did you get exposed to work? Like, what were those?
Oh, yeah. Being an only child, and even back then, I was born in 1971, especially my culture as Korean, they want boys. And I was kind of this accidental baby that wasn't planned. And,
First baby, girl.
Yeah, born out of wedlock. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Mom. And not a boy. So I was raised like a boy. Like my early picture, which I can't find, it's like I had a tie.
Oh, wow.
I never smiled. But my parents raised me to be very tough. And I was a quintessential like Asian, which is all about grades. You're either going to be a doctor, an attorney, and that's kind of about it. Wow. And if you do anything else, you're kind of a failure. And, I just was never in that lane. So very early on, I don't say this negatively, but I think my parents gave up on me and realized.
Well, at what age did you feel that? Was that in high school, or were they kind of like,
No.
okay, gave up on you in a good way? Like, oh, she's smart, she can figure it out, or like?
No, it's like, well, she's got potential, but she's obviously not realizing it. So let's see what happens. And it was just never good enough. And it makes an impression as you get older, which I had to learn to process. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just growing up, whatever I did was never good enough. And there was always someone who did it better. And I think that made me just always want to achieve more. So that's the positive stuff, right? This is not all sad stories and sobbing, right? I don't want anyone to feel pity, although.
But that's hard to swallow, though. I mean, how do you know that growing up? Like, I have my kids are young right now. My oldest is 9, and I'm a strict dad. But at the same time, they're not going to realize they're not going to understand what we're doing or what we're trying to do. My parents are very strict too, but we don't realize that until we're older. So how do we fix that? How do we balance that with our own kids, right? Because you don't want to be friends with them and be so lenient, but at the same time, you learn a lot from those lessons.
Sure.
But it's not easy to learn from, even as you're older, right? Like, how do you look back and be like, yeah, that was a good idea? Like, I don't think you really understand until you're in a different place, right?
And in a way, my parents were excellent teachers, right? Because I learned all the things not to do, what not to do as a parent, what not to do in a relationship. So in that sense, it served me well. It was painful then, but as I've grown and as I'm leading my own life and living my own life, it has served me well, I like to think.
So, I mean, I don't want to get into your leadership role now, but I'll tap back into that. Tell me a little bit about once you're in high school, you graduated, like, how was that transition? Tell me about your college years, went to college.
Yeah. In high school.
Well, you did go because you got your master's and your bachelor's, obviously. But how was that transition? High
school, of course. Private school was an important thing. And I went to a really good private school. Kids came from parents that had a lot of money. We did not. Every cent was scraped towards my education. So I just couldn't relate. So I didn't have friends in high school. But I did graduate. I did well academically. And then I went to University of San Diego, University of California of San Diego. My dream since I was 5, though, was to go to Harvard.
No.
Because that was like the quintessential, the Asian thing. And I didn't get accepted, even though I had a really good GPA, because I didn't have anything extracurricular, no sports, nothing, because my parents didn't believe in that. And maybe there were some other things, I don't know, but it's very competitive. And when I didn't make it to Harvard, that was another moment where I felt like both my parents and this time me, I've given up on me. And I just thought I'm not good enough. And UC San Diego was an excellent school, but I went to it because my only friend growing up went to that college. And so I went to UC San Diego, and I said I survived through it because it was the first time I was away from home, from all the way from LA to San Diego.
At what age?
I went to college when I was 18, after high school.
So you moved out 18
I
months
moved out to
ago.
dorm, but I came home every weekend to check on my parents because, mind you, because of domestic violence, I was the peacekeeper, I was a referee. So I would always come back and make sure they were okay. And then because of all the advanced placement classes I took in high school, I was able to graduate in 3 years.
Wow.
And it was perfect because we ran out of money. My parents lost their shoe store, which we've had for years during the
you see, you
1992
skipped the
LA.
whole piece there.
Yeah.
Okay, so your parents had a shoe store
I had a shoe store, and in 1992 with the LA riot, they lost it.
in downtown.
Yes. So I became head of the household. And so I had to get a job, a real job, really fast because I wanted to be a journalist when I was in college, when I got out. But it didn't pay enough. And I needed to take care of my parents. We had mortgage. My dad was depressed. He was ill.
Wow.
So I started looking for a job. And by the grace of faith, I applied for a job that I was completely unqualified for. And I got it. And that started my sort of this windy, unplanned journey, which cannot be explained.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not even getting there yet. Police, law enforcement, public service, to an engineer and a manager or general manager at a CEO at a huge water district. You're, again, skipping through this whole side of your past. So when your parents had this business, it got burned down during the LA riots,
It did not get burned down.
What happened there?
So we were in the Westlake area. It did not get burnt down, but because the area was so devastated, many stores, including ours, we had to just lock it up and walk away because there was no business, nobody came.
I remember. I remember those times. So so that's where the Korean. This whole industry. So my parents have businesses here in LA, and my sister was involved during that time, and it was really dark times. It was pretty bad for our city. So I think you probably saw what was going on, and your dad was experiencing it. And did he have something that was made it very difficult in the household because of what was going on at work, or how did that?
Absolutely. Talk about the old pride, being the caretaker, the man. My dad was 19 years older than my mom.
Wow.
And here's his little girl, who wasn't even supposed to happen, now being head of the household. Yes. And while he could be proud of that for his own self, it was devastating. And we could see the deconstruction of a man who I thought was invincible because he was a machine. He was military, the way he was, the way he lived, the way he raised me. To see that man break down to how he became, it was both a crushing experience in my life, but also a defining moment because it's indescribable. And you mentioned that your family went through similar experience, so you understand.
Not to that extent, but they had some difficulties in their industry and their business, and I mean, positive, right? Looking at it now, they're very positive in the sense that they got out at a good time. But during those years, right, it was very difficult. And then my brother was in a really bad car accident, and my mom just wanted nothing to do with the business. And I just remember experiencing their troubles through their company, because it was a massive company in their heyday. But it's tough, right? Because we feel it as kids, right? So again, I'm trying to put myself in that position with my son now, because I kind of went through something similar. I ended up selling the family business, and it's always bittersweet. It's not easy to let something go like that, but our businesses are our babies, and I can't imagine taking that out on our kids and just kind of, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of weight, and men don't have a means to speak about it often. We're very quiet about what's happening financially or in our household, and we want to put up that front and that face. So I can't imagine what your dad was going through, and I'm sure it was difficult, but like you said, it probably drove you to do well in school and to do well academically and to pursue your own career. So you're in college now. Were you working during that time, or were you just purely...
So in 1992, I was a year away from graduating from college. So as soon as I graduated, I assumed head of the household. And then in 1996, my dad passed away. It just overwhelmed him. But I saw the decline over the years. And like you said, it created resolve in me. I had no choice. It's survival or die. And I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to choose. All I knew was that I had to take care of my parents. I had to take care of me.
Wow.
And that really lit a fire in me. So as soon as I graduated, I was hustling. I was hustling to make sure I got the job that would take care of them. And that's sort of been something that resides with me till this day, because that's my responsibility, to take care of my parents, take care of my mom now, since my dad has passed away. But also never to lose that fire, and always know where that fire comes from, because it's not just ambition. It's not like, oh, I have to do this, I have to move up. But it's, what can I do to help others? What can I do so that other people don't have to experience what I went through? How can I create a bigger impact and also be able to take care of the things that I need to? And that has really been my guiding light. And even though I never had the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan, I didn't really know what I want to do with my life. That has been my compass throughout, and it still does.
It's one thing that I've noticed with a lot of inspirational leaders like yourself and people I've come across at work is you always have a drive to give back and give to the community. Is that what led you to public service? Tell me, how did you transition into that?
The way I got into public service was actually an accident, but what I do is because I want to give back. Because a journalist job wasn't paying well, I had to find a job that paid more. And this is like, I'm totally dating myself. Back in the days, there was like no Indeed, internet, where you look for jobs. So I had to go to the library and look at the periodical section to look for jobs. And I remember going to Pasadena City Library, and I saw this job. It was for the grants administrator for the city of Pasadena. And back then, I was too dumb to know that I was completely unqualified. I'm like, I like this job. I like what it pays. So I applied. Now, there was an orientation, and there was like 200 people.
Wow.
And I was completely underdressed. I didn't know what I was doing. The only reason I got that job was the day that I took the application, because that position was inside the Pasadena Police Department, because it was to help with DUI enforcement and awareness for the city, getting the city ready for the 1994 World Cup.
Wow.
And this position was to work with city council, the business, the public. And back then, again, I had to actually hand carry the resume and application. And I was at the counter at the police department, and I'm fluent in Spanish, not as much now because I don't use it as much, but I was waiting in
Nunca
line.
sabía eso.
Sí.
Wow.
Todo esa portion en español,
Sí,
por
sí.
favor. So I was standing in line, and this lady was only a Spanish speaker, and she was very distraught, so I helped the receptionist translate, and we figured it all out. Well, I didn't realize that the future panelist who was in charge of accepting all the application was walking by, and he asked the receptionist later, what was that whole scene? And so she explained. He's like, yeah, but the Asian lady's talking Spanish. What's like, she come with him or her? And no, this lady came in to turn this into
Oh my
you.
God.
And she just helped out. And literally because of that, I got the interview, because I was helpful and I was kind.
You never know.
I got the interview. And
That's
luckily
incredible.
I did well in the interview and I got the job. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I was at my desk in my little cubicle all hours of the night, because it was a police station. So I was at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And everyone thought, wow, she's such a hard worker. So that's why about a year or so later, they said, you're such a hard worker. You do a good job. You should be a police officer.
Wow.
That's how it happened.
What did you think though? Like how would you think, I'm going to be a police officer, this is what I'm going to do?
Terrified.
That's not
Terrified. Like bone shaking terrified, because remember I told you I grew up like
Yes.
very overweight, unathletic.
Well,
I could not run a lap,
oh my
although I
goodness.
got better. So it was terrifying. Like, what if I don't make the police academy? But I saw how much money I could make and the benefit.
Oh my goodness.
And then this is when my dad's health was declining. My mom had never worked. She helped out at the store, but we didn't have a store no more.
Wow.
So I said, I don't have a choice. It's survival. So I said,
goodness.
sure. I'm like, these are people who are smarter than me thinking I can do it. And I just leaped right into it. And I did it. And I loved it, because
Wow.
it was the closest thing. Being a police officer, if you do it right, because you hear a lot of stories about it being done wrong. And I have absolutely no sympathy, no compassion, no excuse for that. Because we have such an obligation, responsibility, and we hold a high power, and with that comes tremendous amount of integrity and responsibility. But when you do it right, it's like being a superhero every day. And this ties back to when I was 5 in Korea. Like, I saw my first syndicated show from the United States, black and white, Wonder Woman. And I was this little, just awkward kid watching this show, adored Wonder Woman for everything that she symbolized. And so when I put that uniform on
You felt
and I
it.
was out there, I felt a little bit like that. And it
felt
was
it.
the best feeling I ever felt in my life. I went from being this weird, awkward, unpopular to like, I'm making an impact. I'm helping people.
What do your parents think when you decided to be a police officer? No.
Actually, my dad, he wasn't proud, but it's probably a little bit of the most acknowledgement that I've got, where he was like, okay. That's kind of
And
all
this
he
is
said.
when times were tough. I mean, those years were difficult years for law enforcement
Yeah,
in
early
general.
90s,
So
yeah.
it's like people nowadays, they don't want to be a police officer. My nephew's a sheriff, but it's not. They're having a hard time recruiting, basically, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you being a female officer during that time was not common. For you to just jump right into that, I mean, that's scary.
It was. And again, being all of 5'3", and I got a lot of looks, which is, what is like she doing? Everybody knew me as a good worker, as a civilian, but you put on that uniform and they're like, oh, I don't know.
And you had a situation, I'm reading. Tell me a little bit about how you got, put in a position like that where you had to, use your firearm.
Yes. So ever since I started in law enforcement, everybody expected me to fail. And that was actually a really important lesson that still carries with me today, because, when you just look at me, it's like I'm not much to look at. And so I'm very used to being underestimated, and that's okay.
You probably use it to your advantage, right?
I try to. And I just said, I always say outwork, outlast, and outlive everybody. That's kind of like my 3 mantras. And so when I became a police officer, I said, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do everything nobody wants to do. I'm going to do it better than anybody wants to do. And I'm going to work better than anybody else. And I really applied myself, because I also knew that I carried on my shoulder a path forward. If I mess up, next time another Asian woman comes up, how do I want to leave that trail?
Wow.
Next time a woman of color, how do I want to live that trail? And I think I was just also in a place in my life where it was, again, do or die. So I kind of went all in, to a point people thought I was a little nuts. Like, aren't you afraid? And I was, but I had no choice. And so I worked really hard, and I trained really hard. So I was the first female firearms and defensive tactics instructor because I knew of my disadvantage in size and strength. I was going to make up for it
with your firearms,
with my practice and my training and everything that I got.
I don't want to go to your house now. I'm sure you
and
still
so
have.
it's just like right, and it's also like you have to visualize, you have to exercise its muscle memory. And one day, I still remember July 5th, 1998. It was right after 4th of July, obviously. And it was a Sunday, and we get a call. I was out in patrol, get a call with a man with a shotgun on a bicycle. And you think, like, really? Wow. And the next call from dispatch is a shot went off. And they always give you the most known cross-section, intersection. And we all get there, but there's nothing there. But then I remember where the caller called from, which was a smaller side street. And a lot of times where the caller comes from is not where the call gets spotted to, right? Again, to the intersection. So I go there, and again, it was predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and people in Spanish were saying, this is his bike, and this was a park that was under renovation, but there were still people there. And I see the bike, and they're like, he went that way. And an officer came to assist me. We go into the park. It was under construction. And there was this temporary chain link fence around a baseball diamond. Turn the corner, and there's this guy lying in wait with a hunting rifle.
Wow.
And the proximity was so close. He got the jump on us, me and my other officer. So as we turned the corner, he let a round out. Again, by the grace of heavens, the only reason he missed was because it was too close of a range and he was using the scope.
Oh, shit.
And this is where training comes in. Don't even remember taking the gun out of the gun was already out of holster, but don't remember shooting because your senses change. No matter how much you train until you're in that moment, it's different. Shot back, shot him, took him down, and that's what I got the Civil Medal of Courage for. And
that's scary.
What it taught me and what helped me teach others in my capacity is practice, 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 visualize constantly, because in that moment, you are not in control of your facilities. But when you practice, when you visualize, everything happens without you even thinking through it.
It becomes your nature, right?
Absolutely.
It becomes second nature, and your body just reacts. I don't think you understand what you've done until afterwards, right? But it's scary too, right? I think that's where a lot of people have issues, right, in law enforcement, where they say you have a split second to react, right? So at that moment, you're hoping and praying that you're making the right decision, right? Because there can be other people around, and someone else can get hurt, or So I can't imagine being put in that situation. That's scary for sure.
And that's life, though. The things that you do. There are times when you have to make decisions without having all the information, right?
Well, you can't compare. I mean,
it may not be life and death, but being able to make that decision, you learn a lot about yourself. And the biggest takeaway and the gratitude that I have for my time being a police officer is what people have taught me. People out in the street, people in the department, people all around, because I've had the privilege of working with people from all walks of life, and I got to hear their stories. I got to see them in their environment, and whether you call them criminals or victims, at the end of it, when you're right there and you're eye to eye, face to face, you understand the humanity and you understand what compassion really means. And if you don't get that, if you can't see the love of people, then it's not the right profession for you.
Yeah, it's very difficult, right? Because here in downtown LA, where I grew up in our family business, we've had some situations. We've had to tackle some people with some what we say in Spanish, machetes, like literally, and it's tough, right? Because everyone's in different positions, and not everyone thinks the same or is the same, and it's hard to understand and not judge a book by its cover. And when you're in law enforcement, you have so much responsibility carrying that badge and the firearm, and it takes a lot for you to understand that. So I think that helps you in your leadership roles and growing in your careers too. Like you're able to understand and really visualize what people are going through and the reasoning why they're reacting a certain way. So I think it prepares you for what you're doing next in your career, right? So
you're absolutely right.
Go Go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm not afraid of anyone, and I actually do profoundly. I know this sounds weird because I don't throw a word love easily, but I do love people because, you go back to even my dad. What he did was not okay, but I got to see the different sides of that story, and that's why I don't judge people. Like, I never saw myself as that. I was there to protect, to uphold the peace. And there's other process to judge in which people go through. And yes, do I believe there are evil people? I do. But in the course of what I do in my work, I always have to believe in people. Because if you don't, then what's your alternative? So for me, it's about making sure that I believe in them, but I'm also enforcing and protecting peace, which is the hardest part of being a leader, because being a top workplace doesn't mean you're just always having a good time. It means you're taking very strong disciplinary actions, making unpopular decisions, and being firm when it's hard. But those are the kinds of things that really test who you are as a human being. And are you really the right one for the job? Because it's not easy.
I mean, it's a different sense of responsibility, right? I mean, not what you're doing now, even in the water district. Water is very important. Like, I think a lot of people don't really understand how important things are until maybe they don't have any water or clean water in their homes, right? But we don't think about it often. And that's a lot of responsibility for your community. So now you're not just responsible for your household, for your employees, but you're providing the service to multiple households and multiple families and people that survive off of water, right? And this is not just drinking water. This is what we need for our households. So look at what happened at the fires. Like, it's a big responsibility. So that's a lot of weight on your shoulders. So how do you manage that? How do you I mean, I'm sure you sleep fine at night, but how do you maintain how do you maintain your composure with such responsibility? Because that's not an easy, that's not an easy job to have.
I take it as a privilege to be able to affect and make a difference. And it's not just in my community, whether it's California or nationally, because we all know people that live somewhere. I always talk about the broader community and even globally, because when it comes to water, everyone is right. It's like religion. You're not going to win that fight trying to convince someone that you're wrong and I'm right. What I've always tried to do is, that's your belief, this is my belief. Let's put the belief aside and let's negotiate. What are we trying to do here? Yeah. Because we have to get something done, and let's figure it out. Because we could either do nothing or we could do something. We won't get everything, but let's just do something, because that's progress. And we have to do it because we have that obligation and that responsibility. And that's what the public expects. I always looked at water as a people business rather than a utility. And there was a time that I was an anomaly in this industry. The way that I am, the way that I look, the way that I think, the way that I operate. Well, and even now, I'm still a bit of an odd duck, but that's okay, because for me, the infrastructure, all these things, yes, is indicative of what we do. But at the end of it all, it's about people, and it always starts with people. And if I put my focus on that, everything always
Going
happens.
Back to your public service.
Yes.
You're always... That's where leadership comes in, right? Not everyone thinks the way you think. I mean, maybe we want to think that we think that way, but a lot of these leaders and people like you in your position, I think when you have that intent and that compassion primary, then everything else follows, right? So being just a really good person and taking people into consideration and really helps you in your leadership skills. So how did you pivot from law enforcement to water? What was it? What was the transition like there, or what did you do in between that?
Another accident. I fell in love. Apparently not with the right person, because it's now my ex-husband. Okay. But at the time, the person that I was in love with said, if you don't leave law enforcement, we're not going to be together.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. Oh, my goodness, is the right message. It's like, if I could do a PSA message right now, I would say, don't make career decisions on that. But I did at the time. I didn't know better. And I just started looking for a job to change my career. I had got my master's while I was a police officer. And the first place, and by the way, I applied for like salesperson, teacher. I applied for so many different things. And the first place that called me was a water agency in LA.
Wow.
And I went through the interview and I got hired proudly as a lowest ranking member of the public affairs department with no title.
Wow.
And my first day on the job, they said, "You are everyone's peon." And I said, "I will be the best peon."
Oh my goodness.
Because
Wow.
what choice did I have? Again, survival. And then just worked really hard. Also, again, a lot of blessings. And 7 years later, I became a CEO.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, think about the students that are out there right now working on their masters or working on their bachelors or even have gone through all of that and are still trying to figure out what they're doing. And for you to get into this industry, it's incredible the amount of people that are involved and the amount of just the infrastructure and the industry as a whole in water is. I mean, I get pulled into some of your summits. And I've met a lot of great individuals that work in that industry, and it's so important. And for you to just start in an agency like that and work your way up to CEO of this water district, it's incredible. I mean, it just really shows your work ethic. Like, I don't think a lot of people can say. I mean, you say it very lightly, but I know it's not lightly. It's a big deal.
You know, I always tell people, first and foremost, you have to be a good person and do good for others. It's not just enough that you're good. You have to do good for others. There is a power in that, and I am a testament to that because I was never the smartest. I was never the best at anything. This is why I don't like competition because I'm not like, I'm a winner. Like, no, I like to build a strong team around me because I know I'm not the strongest. But being a good person, doing good for others is my number one rule. And the second thing is always, not only help people, but see how you can make an impact and beyond yourself. And of course, work ethic is really, really important. And having that hunger, the desire to work, but not in a way that's selfish, not in a way that puts others down, but in a way that lifts others. And if you work hard for others, it's incredible what you can achieve. And what I wish I could tell myself when I was in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s, which I tell people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s to nauseam, is build your relationships. Because if you're a good person, you do good for others, and you're helpful, and you're making those impacts, and you're lifting others, you're going to build those relationships. And that is so critical in life and in your profession. And I wish I had known that sooner. I had to catch up real fast. I worked hard at it. But if you start early, it's so much better. And it builds you as a different person. And I look back on so many years of my life and how I felt the loneliness and how I felt the lack of confidence to where I feel now. I still feel awkward. I still don't have that confidence. But I'm part of a community and I know what I bring. I know who I connect. And in people around me is where I find my strength. And it's been, I say it's been a joyous life.
And you lead with such strength and empathy. Like, I'm trying to capture your leadership style because I know you outside of work, but what would your employees say about you and your staff, like people who work around you? Because it sounds like you really bring them in, and your leadership style is not conventional. So tell me a little bit about that and how do you, like if I were to read a book, what's closest to your style?
Interestingly enough, I read a lot of books as part of my master's program. I don't put myself in any category because I never quite identified with one. What I would say is my style is about being very much evolving, adapting to the situation, to the people, but ultimately getting it done. So this isn't just all making sure everybody's feeling good. Having a workforce that feels safe, mentally, physically, emotionally at work is my paramount priority. But we have a job to do, and we're going to get
Critical
it done.
job.
Right? We're going to get it done, but we're going to bring everybody along, and different generation, different people, different perspective. I have to make sure I am appealing to all those different thoughts and generations and perspectives. So I try to make myself fit into the time and the need that I need to fulfill, because if I could say it, my leadership style, it's everything else but me. You know, I put myself last.
I mean, I think that's really important, because there's certain people who have a certain style and everyone has to work around that style, right? But when you're considering your staff and your support, obviously everyone learns different, right? Well, it's like being a student at school. We all have a different way of learning, and you probably have a different way of communicating that. So it's trying to understand the best way to approach things. So it sounds like you're easy to work with, but you never know, because at the end of the day,
when there's a deadline,
there's it's business too, right? So it's kind of balancing that.
Sure.
When I had the family business, I had employees that were with me for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, and they kind of get a little too comfortable, right? And sooner or later, they may not take you so serious. But I had one gentleman, I'm like, I won't say his name, but he a lot older than I was, and I'm like, look, don't take me for granted. Don't take my compassion and my love for all of you guys for granted. This is still a workplace. We still have to get things done, and you have to balance that, right? But the idea, and me, I'm still learning, right, is not to let it get that far, right? So obviously it's a learning experience for me, and trying to lead a team. But you lead over 200 employees, you said? So it's not easy to work with such a dynamic team and doing that. So it's incredible what you do. Tell me a little bit about your hobbies and your passion outside of the water district. You sit on a lot of boards. And again, it kind of comes back to you giving back to the community, but you sit on the board of United Way, Make-A-Wish. Like what transitioned you, and what made you want to do that?
All the boards that I sit on, I've never asked to be on the board. I'm very surprised and humbled that they asked me, because it's the same principle that I live by, is that when you are good and you do good for others and you lift others and give people what they want, inevitably they want you around. And I really believe that's why I'm on all these boards, and I don't like to say no, because...
But you're active. You're active, and you show up, you participate. You're not just another picture and name.
No,
you're
because
active.
I'm so honored that I'm asked. I mean, you gotta remember, like, I'm not used to being asked for anything. I'm this nerdy outcast kid. Like, anytime someone asks me for something, I'm just like, I am so thankful. Like, I can't say no, and I want to do good, because I don't want to let you down. And so that does spread me thin. And when you say hobby, I don't have a hobby, because I love what I do. Like, I can't think of anything else that I enjoy more than the work that I do in the public service environment. What I love is that I get to wear many hats. I'm just not the CEO of Moulton Niguel Water District. I get to serve on the California Seismic Safety Commission that affects all Californians. We just saw the wildfire disaster, and we're doing things right now to prepare for the next big one that's going to result in wildfire. I get to participate on a National Advisory Board for infrastructure that's critical to life. I get to be on all these boards to connect people, because, again, if you need something, like, I don't know how to do it for you, but I know someone who can. And if I can bring you two together, and it's a catalyst for something wonderful, I'd love to just sit and watch and see good things happen. And I don't have to take the credit. I don't have to be a part of it. It makes me feel good. It gives me a sense of worth that I didn't have before to see that.
And it's like the least we can do. I joined the board of the American Red Cross December, right before the fires. And it's incredible to see the amount of work that they do and the infrastructure that they have. And I mean, they're fully activated, right? And it's in a moment's notice. And we keep talking about the big one here in Los Angeles, and it's scary to think that way. But the fires, and it's all about the infrastructure too, right? Because if we do have an earthquake that way, or an earthquake, you know, we're going to have fires, we're going to have floods, we're going to have gas line leaks. It's going to be a very difficult. So to bring your experience in seismic and water and public safety, right? Like, you bring so much to the table. You definitely do wear multiple hats. So, I mean, it's nice to have your cell phone number because I know who I'm calling.
Well, and it's nice to have yours too, because you're the same way. You know people, and that's one thing I really appreciate about you, is that you love connecting, you love helping. That's why I don't know if I should even bring this up, but when you post on LinkedIn about how do you network, how do you come into a room with a bunch of strangers, I've shared that with so many people that, you know, we all mentor people, and I've shared that with so many people, and that has also created other sparks that I'll share with you later about the conversation that has incited. But you don't have to do that, and it's very helpful to people.
I think I'm still building on that, definitely. When I joined the chamber, it opened up my world. I mean, I was in an industry where I was in a bubble. You're going to the same conventions, the same trade shows, the same vendors, the same people, the same network, right? And it's just one industry, you know, whether it's groceries or confectionery. And when you're involved in such a massive organization that has so many different verticals, so many different industries, so many different partners, I'm like literally a kid right now. I'm learning so much. And then I get exposed to people like you, and I'm like, okay, like, there's so much more I can learn, right? So that's really all I'm doing. I'm just trying to learn and compile all this information the best way I can, and when I can, and send it out to people who may be in the similar position. Because that networking newsletter that you're mentioning, I did stop this year because of the fires and just a lot going on. I should bring that up again. But it's things that I'm experiencing. Like, okay, I'm going to these events. I'm meeting all these great people. There's like 500 people in here. Like, how do you network? How is this meaningful? Like, you meet a lot of great people, but what do you do afterwards? How do you continue the relationship and the dialogue? So, again, I'm not saying I have the answers, but I'm really just trying to learn as much as I can, and I'm learning from you guys. Like, you guys have been there, done that, and are still doing it. And all I can do is help amplify the work that you guys are doing. So, yeah, it's incredible what you're doing. So, what do you see is next for you? Like, it sounds like everything you've done has been by mistake.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if you had to choose what you'd want to do, I mean, I know you're doing it now, but like, if you said, I really want to do this, what would it be?
I really want to be on a bigger stage where I can make a bigger impact. I love my agency, and my board members know it, my staff knows it, my community knows it. And we've created such an amazing, we call it the Moulton magic, not just within the organization, but what we created around us. You know, when we talk about worldwide presence for an agency of our size, it almost sounds fictitious, but it's real. United Nations recognized us, global entities. Imagine what we can do in a bigger forum. Yeah. And I never set my sights just on one thing because of the experience. I have a lot of faith that as long as I continue to do what I do and know that I am meant for a bigger purpose, that my faith and the community around me will carry me there. And I just got to make sure that I always stay ever ready and always prepare myself and train myself for that next challenge, for that next calling, and all will be good.
It's definitely a calling. I think when you look at it that way, you know, things will come to you, right? And they come at the right time, the right moment. And if you stay true to yourself and helping others, I think, like you said, that's going to reflect on who you meet and who you interact with, and that opportunity will come, right? And you'll know, and you'll have a feeling. Maybe you don't know, but things do happen by mistake, like you said, and you'll try to figure out how to navigate that. But I think that when you're a compassionate person and truly caring, that goes a long way. Because I think a lot of people who are driven by money, who are driven by different necessities, are not authentic, and they can only go so far, right? What amazes me with you is you are already at that level, right? You already have such a position that's anyone would want to be in your position, but you're still so humble. You're still so caring, right? Because a lot of people who are in those titles and have those roles, suddenly they're just too busy or just kind of too good for other people. So it's nice to see that you're still compassionate to the community and you're really involved. Like I said, it's not just, you sign up just to say you've done it or you've been there, but I think you're very compassionate and it really just shows in your line of work and what you've done so far and what you continue to do.
And I get more out of it. It's not like, oh, I'm here being so nice. Someone said to me the other day, you're too accessible. You're too reachable. And I said, you got to understand, as someone who nobody wanted to talk to, I am always thankful when someone reaches out, when they want to spend their precious time to talk with me. And I try to make every effort. Sometimes I do it well, sometimes not as well. When you asked me to be part of your podcast, I was so honored. Oh my gosh, knowing you and your network and the people and the title of this all, I'm like, you want me to be on the show? Of course, it's such an honor. And that wonder and amazement and joy never gets old. I love what I do, and I feel sorry for people who just, I do that all the time. Because when it comes to money, you never have enough.
Yeah, definitely.
But when it comes to joy, it's what you make it. And, I am so excited for you that you're doing this podcast. And I wish we could have caught what you said before the camera started rolling about why you started this. And I hope that you do share with your viewers and listeners of why you're doing this and how you're doing it, because it's very unique.
I think, and I haven't said it on camera, but the reason why I'm doing this is because I come across so many great leaders like you. And when I go to a lot of these forums and these conferences and summits, you're on stage, you have your talking points, and you're presenting an entity or a company or whatever else, and you're rarely talking about yourself. And I've always wondered, I'm like, wow, how did that person get there? Why are they the way they are? Or how, to me, it's all about leadership. And if I can capture your leadership style and who you are, we can inspire others, right? And inspire me, that's all I'm doing. It's like, okay, so how do I get to sit down with you? And I've been given this platform and I don't take it lightly. I take it very serious. And when I started working for this organization, my passion was the mission. It wasn't the title. It wasn't the pay. It was like, okay, I believe in what we're doing. I believe it's needed. I believe in our leader. I believe in our board. And it's easy for me to go work, right? Because it's not, I really don't feel like I'm working. And when I was in the family business, I felt like I was working. Like I grew up in it. It was like every weekend you had to go work. On the summers you're working and you grow up in it. And actually, there was some time where we didn't have that business. And then you realize, man, it's nice to have a family business, right? And then you want it again. And I had the opportunity of getting it again. And then I did that for a long time, but it's just, it's very overwhelming. And to me, it's balancing it all, right? It's like, how do you balance everything that you're doing? Because when you have that responsibility of managing a payroll at that size and that magnitude, it's nothing you take very lightly, right? It's like people depend on this and live off of this, and for your case, it's people survive, right? So for me, it's like it's such a sense of responsibility and just a heavy load, right? So it's how do you balance what you're doing now? Like, I know you say you have no hobbies, but you're involved in so much. Like, how do you pick and choose? Because you talked about accessibility. I've gotten that comment before, like, you're everywhere. Do you ever say no? And maybe we should start saying no. Like, what do you think? Like, how do we balance that too? Because at the same time, you're you're pulling from somewhere else, right? Like for me, I'm pulling from my family, my kids. I'm out, from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, sometimes later, and I'm taking time away from something else. So how do you balance all of that?
I would say don't overthink it. I went through the whole thought process too for a long time, and I just realized don't overthink it. You're blessed to even say, where is my balance? And if you feel that you don't have enough time for your family, maybe that day you make the time. Don't take the whole thing at once. Take it one step at a time, one day at a time. I can only do what I can today, which is I'm not going to satisfy everyone today. But this is how I'm going to prioritize today. Tomorrow I'm going to look back at today and say I made a terrible mistake, but that's okay. Let's fix it on a Wednesday then.
You made a terrible mistake
right?
being on a podcast with Chris.
and these are all of us trying to figure it out. It's the hustle. It's a good hustle. And for our children, for our loved ones, our friends, I used to always tell my son, hugs and kisses don't buy you shoes. Mom's got to go to work.
There you go.
And with friends, I celebrate my friends when they cancel because they got some good thing going on at work. And it's who you surround yourself with. It's how you communicate why you're doing what you're doing. And it's not the quantity of time, it's the quality of the time.
My wife says that.
And you just, you go through and you do the best that you can, and you trust the people around you to say, hey, I need this from you. Like, okay, all right. No one should sit back and, well, let's see what you do. And be judgy and say, oh, you didn't do this. You have imbalance. Because who is really in balance? Like, what is that balance? Who knows? Show me a good person that's got a good balance.
Well, the thing is, too, is we found something that we're compassionate about, right? So, like I said, I don't feel like I'm working, and at least I can say I'm giving back to the community one way or another, right? And when I'm out and away from my kids, I kind of say that a little bit too. It's like, as I was growing up, my parents were always gone, but I knew they were working to sustain a household. We were 6 siblings, right? It's not easy, and I understood that. But I was lucky to understand that as a child. Some kids don't understand that, or they don't realize that. They just think mom and dad are working. But if they understand what you're doing and how you're playing a role in a greater cause or greater good, like my older son, he understands now. Like, he was super sad when I sold the business. He was to this day, he still draws pictures of the business and our trucks and everything. And he's like, Dad, why'd you have to sell the business? I'm like, son, like, there's something more here. There's something that I'm doing. I don't know what yet. I still don't know what, but I feel like I'm giving back. I feel like I'm helping. I feel a part of the community, right? So, it's just, I guess, like you said, you don't think about it too much and just kind of continue doing what you're doing. I have a lot of support too with my wife. Like, she understands, and I'm lucky where she's home and she has everything taken care of. But yeah, like you said, we shouldn't really have to balance things, right? It's just part of life.
Yeah, this idea of you have to have this perfect balance and perfect life is total false. Even if they say that they are, if you kind of look under the covers, it's not real, and no one gets it right. We're all just imperfect, which is the beautiful thing about humanity. We don't get it right. And if we sit there and beat ourselves up about what we didn't do and what we are not, we would drive ourselves into the ground. I did that. What I realized is, let's forgive ourselves for what we are not. Let's celebrate ourselves for who we are. Let's pay and focus our time and attention to what we should be, what we can be. And if we can make that good for others as good for us, that's perfect. And that's how I describe perfection. It's so important to find a place in your mind where you could be good with yourself so that you could be good for others. If you're always searching and scrambling to find your perfect balance, you're going to get caught up in that.
Wow. That's incredible. I'm gonna take that snippet and make it into a reel. Well, just before we go, some rapid questions, and I've been trying to follow this as much as I can, but there's when you get into a conversation that gets a little deep, and I think it's best to be natural, right? Okay. And I don't want to. And it was never meant to be an interview and just kind of ask you question by question. But I think that your leadership style and who you are at the end of the day was what I wanted to capture. And it's hard for me to explain that to people when I talk about you. It's like, you know, who are you, and what do you do, and who is she, and why do you hang out with her, and why do you help her? So to me, it's like people need to see who you are outside of what we do every day. And I'm thankful for you to be here today. I'm honored that you're here. You know, and I really appreciate your time. I don't take it lightly because I know how busy you are.
Oh, and it's more than mutual. You know, ever since I met you, you have just been this amazing center of everything and a connector and kind. Out of all those hundreds and thousands of people, you knew who I was. That is very rare. Because there are people with a lot higher titles, greater influence, that are more important to the work that you're doing, but you knew who I was and you took the time. And that is not only the kind of leader you are, but that is the kind of human being that you are. And because of that, you are going to exceed your own expectations. And I am just going to be here pushing and cheering, and just being in your shadow is an honor.
You're definitely not in any shadow. I think we're learning off of each other, if anything. Like I said, I am a child right now, living this dream, working for this company, this organization, and I just come across so many great inspirational leaders. And you know, I have no like alternative motive that I'm like, you know, it's hard for me to explain because it's not that I've thought about what I'm doing, right? I'm just doing it. But the reason why I'm doing it is because our organization is there to support the community. We're there to assist our region. And if you believe in what we're doing, it comes very naturally and organically. And I really do believe in what we're doing. And I believe in our leadership. When someone's working for you, it makes it easier, right? And that's how I feel. And you know, it's hard because it's very tempting. There's a lot of options and opportunities out there. But if you stay true to yourself, everything else will come, right? So.
Absolutely.
So, coffee or tea?
Tea.
Oh, okay.
Black tea.
Black tea. What's
And
your
lots of
favorite
honey and cream.
quote or mantra?
Ooh. Reach what you cannot.
Dream dinner with which guest? Like if you were to sit down for dinner with someone, who would you want to sit down with?
Oh, my dream dinner. It would be, I think it would be a combination of Korean and Italian dinner. Noodles is a common.
Okay.
Who would I want to sit with? Oh, there's so many. That's a really good one. You stumped me on this one. You know, this sounds, I would love to sit down and have dinner with Prince.
Prince, like
The singer.
formerly known as Prince?
Formerly
Oh,
known
he's
as Prince,
passed,
yes,
though.
yes. I know.
All right,
But
well,
you
maybe-
didn't say it have to be alive. If I mean,
all right.
Do I really have a chance?
I'll give you that one.
I'm manifesting, maybe,
I'll give you that
you know.
one. But why Prince?
Because he was, talk about someone who's revolutionary, someone who is a pioneer, someone who's extremely talented.
Yeah.
And you would just never think, if you didn't know him before he was Prince, that he could be this, he was a game changer.
There's this song that I love that he wrote that I didn't know. Was it Shania Twain? No. It was Chris Cornell covered it. No, I'm drawing a blank. Nothing Compares to You.
Oh, yeah, Sinead O'Connor.
There you go.
Yes.
But thank you again for your time. It means a lot that you took the time to come out here to LA and downtown, and I truly appreciate your friendship, and I look forward to the future and where things take us. But thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I am so excited about your podcast, and I know you'll be so successful, and just don't forget us little people.
Oh, no.
When you're just
No. I think I can't do it without the support that I have and everyone around me. So.
Oh, and you certainly have a lot of that. Certainly have it here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us. You'll get all the information and details through this video and this podcast. I don't want to say podcast. You know why? You're in journalism. I can ask you real quick. So someone in the entertainment industry told me that we shouldn't say podcast so much because this may be picked up in another format.
Well, that's what we're talking about off camera. I said what you guys got going on here is so much better than TV broadcast shows, talk shows. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I just said podcast because you said podcast, but I got to
figure out. Yeah, I got to figure out a way to change the verbiage on that.
This is your talk show.
You know, there's a lot of opportunity here, and I think that this can go far. So thank you again for your time, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Los Angeles Leaders Podcast, hosted by Christopher Luna. We hope you found our conversation as inspiring as we did. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us bring more of the content you love. And be sure to follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to join the conversation. Until next time, keep leading, keep innovating, and keep making a difference.